The Ubaid and Uruk expansions can be thought of as Babel, but two sides of the same coin, with the confusion of languages coming between them. Both of these cultural explosions came out of a single city. The command center was simply transferred from Eridu to Uruk after the confusion of languages. That's quite an interesting study in itself. It was language that divided people into groups, probably along tribal lines. This changed the way people lived and did business. After the Uruk expansion fizzled out, no one city was as strong. In Mesopotamia, cities built walls around themselves to protect their own interests, and even fought with each other over water and land. The multiplication of languages brought about the multiplication of cities. It would be an interesting research project to ask if the multiplication of languages could have also been behind the rise of polytheism. Could one god have become many gods because each language group described Noah's God differently? Now we want to look at some of these city-states in Mesopotamia. According to Genesis 10:10 through 13, Nimrod himself oversaw building 4 cities in the south, beginning with Babel, and 4 cities in the north, beginning with Nineveh. Nimrod introduced kingship and dynasty to the world, which is why we call it the Early Dynastic Period. Cities had kings. Then later, nations had kings. And it all began at Babel. Archaeologists use relative dating to place artifacts in periods. This chart shows the relative position of 3 periods: the Ubaid Period, the Uruk Period, and the Early Dynastic Period. We know that they came in that order. The first 2 cities were followed by many city-states in southern Mesopotamia. Each city-state maintained control over its region. As a general rule, each city-state had a ruler called a lugal, a religious and commercial temple, and a wall that surrounded it. The social project that began at Eridu and Uruk spread to many regions as people spread out from Babel. This is what we would expect if people were suddenly divided into many languages. This shows the locations of the first cities. The Ubaid period expansion came out of one city, Eridu. The Uruk period expansion came out of one city, Uruk. Pottery from Jemdet Nasser is found at least 8 other cities, showing that it also had a limited influence over other cities. Jemdet Nasser is over 100 miles to the north of Uruk. Although it was given its own time period in 1930, I question whether it can be justified, especially lasting 200 years. No other city in Mesopotamia had cultural influence like these 3 cities. Here we see the famous city-states of southern Mesopotamia. They were powerful during the Early Dynastic Period. These cities were about 20 to 40 miles apart along the Euphrates River. Each city controlled the farming and commerce over a sizable region. They did not, however, pop up suddenly in the Early Dynastic Period. They already existed in the Ubaid and Uruk periods and took on the characteristics of city-states gradually as Uruk lost its influence. We can see this if I rearrange the cities according to when we found the earliest pottery. This chart shows that Girsu, Nippur, Jemdet Nasser, and Uruk had Ubaid pottery, so they existed as smaller settlements when Eridu was large and influential. Shuruppak had Uruk pottery, so it existed at least as early as the Uruk period. Other cities began with Early Dynastic Period pottery. An important surface scan of pottery in Mesopotamia showed how the countryside was unpopulated during the Ubaid period, but people were widely dispersed during the Uruk period. This reminds us of the dispersion after Babel. Notice Nippur on the left in the Ubaid period. Here is Nippur again with the other major settlements that existed in the Ubaid period. Eridu, of course, was abandoned, while others grew. Eridu disappears in the Uruk period until the Ur-3 ziggurat is built much later. Shuruppak appears at this time. Proto-writing appears at Uruk and Jemdet Nasr, but either cannot be translated or provides little information. These cities grew up along the ancient paths of the Euphrates and Tigris rivers, which have shifted over the years. Let's look at cities along the western branch first. Let's use Google Earth to take a quick look at 7 cities working downstream from north to south. These are Sippar, Kish, Marad, Isin, Shuruppak, Uruk, and Ur. It will help to see what remains of these ancient cities today. Sippar was on a major east-west trade route. It covers 250 acres, but was poorly excavated. Some tablets come from the Early Dynastic Period, but tens of thousands from the older Old Babylonian period. Kish has been mentioned in literature, and 1 or 2 Jemdet Nasr tablets have been found there. It was not large, but an ancient temple seems to have been located there. Marad was established in the Early Dynastic Period and grew to 500 acres. It was barely mentioned in literature, but was important later. Isin was established in the Early Dynastic Period, but was not mentioned in literature until Ur-3, after which it became a powerful dynasty in its own right. Shuruppak had some late Uruk pottery, followed by a local flood layer. It grew to 250 acres at the end of the Early Dynastic Period, and then was destroyed by fire. Uruk was already large in the Uruk period, and continued to grow in the Early Dynastic Period. Ur is famous for its royal cemetery from the Early Dynastic Period. The 20,000 pages of unpublished handwritten field notes are in the process of being scanned to be published online. 9 cities lie along the eastern branch of the rivers, 6 of which we have not seen yet: Jemdet Nasr, Abu Salabik, Nippur, Adab, Umma, and Larsa. Jemdet Nasr consists of 2 mounds with considerable pottery from the Uruk period, as well as its own unique style of pottery and proto-writing, which has not been deciphered. Excavation is not well documented. Jemdet Nasr was abandoned in the Early Dynastic Period. Abu Salabik consists of several mounds and city walls from the Uruk and Early Dynastic periods. About 500 tablets found there are some of the earliest literature. Nippur had reed huts from the Neolithic and grew through the Early Dynastic Period, Akkadian, and Ur-3, up to 370 acres. It was one of the most important religious sites. Adab began in the Early Dynastic Period and lasted through the Old Babylonian period. It produced over 1,000 tablets. Umma has not been excavated, but thousands of tablets have been found there. Larsa had a long history, but few facts are known from its early time. 2 other very important sites lay along another branch even further to the east: Girsu, also called Tello, and Lagash. Girsu was the religious center for Lagash. It has been extensively excavated and has produced about 50,000 tablets. Lagash covered 1,000 acres, but its early dynastic period is known from inscriptions rather than excavations. About the only history that comes from the early dynastic period is a border dispute between Umma and Lagash that was mediated by Mesalim, the king of Kish. It covers 5 kings over a period of about 150 years. In view of all these facts, I conclude that excavations for this period are poorly done and limited in scope. Numerous references to cities and kings cannot be placed in a historical context. Also, the 3 periods into which this is divided are based on pottery and have little historical value. Writings from the later Akkadian period, such as the Sumerian king list, are biased, full of errors, and untrustworthy. Radiocarbon dating, which works for recent dates, cannot be corroborated or calibrated before the first millennium BC. That means that only about 150 years of history can be justified, which is a far cry from the 550 years assigned to this period by the 1930 Convention. The next video will conclude this series with a look at Sargon the Great, the Akkadian Empire, and Ur-3. Why do some people think that Sargon of Akkad was Nimrod from the Bible? If you have learned anything about archaeology, then subscribe to this channel to learn more. The playlist Life After the Flood reconstructs a biblical model of life between Noah and Abraham. This is how archaeology works. It uses known facts to create a hypothetical scenario that is open to scrutiny. I have combined conservative hermeneutics with sound archaeology to create a model for biblical paleoarchaeology. You won't find such a clear and detailed study anywhere else. I promise to keep each video short. If you have learned something about the Bible as history and how God walks with mankind, then subscribe to this channel and tell others about it. I'm on a mission to educate everyone about the most ignored, misrepresented, and crucial period of human history. Join me by educating yourself and by telling others about life after the flood.